Hey boy. Hey boy. Welcome back to another episode of the Avarice Trading Channel podcast. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you are welcome as well. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to send a sincere thank you for the support out to both of you. All 7 people who experience the entertainment I provide, I would like to offer you a sincere thanks. So, we are moving onward and forward with our commentary series. I know I am behind on the reviews. I haven't spit out any reviews for the Scream movies. It just gets a little bit complicated with when I can film, because I like to use the daylight, etc., and do that during the daytime when nobody's here. These commentary tracks I record at night when everybody's asleep, and I don't have to worry about lighting or any of that or how I look. So it's just easier sometimes for me to knock these out than it is for me to knock out the actual videos. Before I get too far into it, we're going to be doing Scream 3 today. I'll be watching it and offering commentary on it. You'll be able to slightly hear it in the background, so if you just want to listen in the podcast form or minimize the YouTube window because you're at work, whatever situation you've gotten yourself in today, I'm here for you, bruh. So, yeah, that is the scenario for what we're going to do. So I'll give you a couple minutes to get yourself situated, figure out whatever the fuck you're going to do with yourself, maybe comb your hair, put on your cleanest dirty shirt, and stumble down the stairs to meet the day. Anyway, so anybody who's listened before, I'm starting to get a little bit of a routine going. This is gonna be like my 13th commentary track, I think. So basically, I do my little short intro like I have just done, and then I give you guys a couple minutes to get your movie figured out, if you're gonna watch along, whatever you're gonna do. And I make myself a fresh cup of coffee, I sit down, I hit the bong, and then we start the show. That's essentially the routine I'm getting into, and then I'm starting to establish. Down the road, if this ever has an audience, it would be great if you guys wanted to kind of join in that routine. It would be kind of the thing we do together. So, anywho, I'm going to go ahead and make that cup of coffee right fucking now. And I want it fucking sizzling hot. Pop open my little bitch-ass Keurig machine. I talk shit about this Keurig machine, but it's gotten me through some tough times. It just doesn't function as well as I thought it would for as expensive as it is. Within a year, it started not operating correctly. It still makes coffee, but something's up with like the pump or the seal. It doesn't do anybody who has a Keurig knows what I'm talking about. At the very end, when it does that kind of pumps out the rest of it and then squirts out a little bit of air and you know it's done. Mine doesn't do that. And sometimes through hook or crook, the coffee grounds make their way out of the pod and into my coffee cup, which I'm not a huge fan of either. Sometimes delivering papers or whatever, I get up and it's like midnight. I stumble out here to make coffee. I don't turn on any lights or anything. I go outside to smoke a cigarette and take a drink of my coffee and get a mouthful of coffee grounds. That's God's way of saying he loves me. So I call him a cocksucking asshole. And I get grounded. Oh, I was on a ramble before I started making that coffee, and I don't remember exactly what I was saying. Anywho, so I appreciate anybody who listens to this, offers positive feedback. I really do. I'm just getting it off the ground here. I'm kind of experimenting with how it works, finding my comfort zone. It's going to be interesting because Scream 3, going into it, off the top of my head, I don't know that I have a lot to say. So it's going to mostly be what I'm thinking of on the fly. And I don't really have a set direction or anything I for sure want to get explained. It's going to be interesting to see if I just turn into a bumbling mess or if I actually can make something out of it. And you're going to be along for the ride to see how that goes. And then somewhere down the line, through, you guys sharing this with your friends, me just keeping at it, showing up every day. Not every day, I can't do this every day, but a couple days a week. I'll gain an audience, and then at that point, I'll have a substantial library of these bitches that they can go back and run through, because I don't know about y'all, but whenever I discover something that I'm newly interested in, I kind of become obsessed. And I'll go back through and watch a substantial portion of their previous archives or library, or if like it's a musical artist, I'll go find their old songs on YouTube and SoundCloud and just find out what they're about. And that's kind of the new thing. We're not being sold as much by advertising agencies and the media on what they want us to consume. We're more finding people that we like and attaching ourselves to you know, their podcast, their YouTube channel, and then just kind of following them and seeing what directions they go with it. It's kind of interesting how that's evolved. You have things where it's more, it seems like finding an audience on YouTube or on a podcast or something is more about how much they relate to you as a person, and like if you guys just mesh right. It doesn't have to be necessarily an issue of personality or a difference of opinion or, you know, political views. Name the fucking topic. It doesn't really have to be that. There's just, it's almost like a chemical thing or a hormonal thing that we can't really pick up, but there's just those people that you click with. And so it seems like that's where the entertainment side of life is going. We're finding people that we click with and then just consuming their entertainment that they produce, rather than consuming a specific genre of entertainment or something to that effect. I hope that made sense. I'm getting a bit rambly off the bat. It's not a good sign. All right. So if you took my suggestion and you are going to consume some form of the devil's cabbage along with me, I am going to commence with that process right now. Got the light tray in my hands, got the glass in my other one, and guess I'm gonna suck the glass dick. You ready? Here we go. Not bad. Not bad at all. So I've done a fair amount of rambling prior to the start of this. Y'all are probably getting impatient, so let's go ahead and get down with it. Alright, so I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then I'm going to say play. And the moment I say play is when I'm actually pushing play. And then we should be all synced up from there. You'll be able to tell by what I'm talking about throughout the film where I'm at if you need to re-sync up later. The odds are, if you're listening to this, especially this deep into the franchise, you've probably seen this movie before. I don't know anybody that's going to be scouring YouTube for commentary tracks for movies that they've never seen. But in case you're that person, spoilers. I'm not going to attempt to hide any information that I'm aware of while watching this movie. If I know what's going to happen, I'm going to talk about it. If I know who the killer is, I'm going to talk about it. So if that's not what you're into, take a hike, kick rocks, hit the road, Jack. Whatever euphemism you want to use. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. Okay, so we are pushing play in 3, 2, 1, play. And see how digestible this movie is. I've seen it a few times, but it wasn't that memorable. I remember being frustrated by the story and the ending. So I'm aware of what that is. But a lot of the in-betweens and stuff is kind of lost. And I remember Courtney Cox having a fucked up hairstyle. She looks like a mop that's upside down, just sitting in a corner. Hollywood. Old school Hollywood, washed up Hollywood. Jack Gilardi's 10 feet tall. So we got Cotton here. Cotton's dreams came true. The entire second movie, he's pursuing fame. He just wants a little bit of recognition, and he wants to see if he can hitch his cart to the train of entertainment and make a living that way via his remarkable quote-unquote story about being falsely imprisoned for the murder of Maureen Prescott. They don't make it obvious to you at this point, but he's now a television host of a TV show called 100% Cotton, which is a beautiful name. That is just nail on the head. That's one of those things that when you're in like a brainstorm meeting or something and you hear that, you just stop. You know that's it. You're not going to get better than that. Maybe raw cotton. 100% Cotton's better. He's on a car phone and a cell phone at the same time. This is the beginning of this shit. People with multiple phones constantly talking on the phone. We used to be a lot more in the moment before this kind of took over. Maybe someday I'll do a podcast on the simulation theory. I don't want to weird people out on a movie commentary by getting too deep into that. But I have my theories. Or at least not my theories. I can offer conjecture and a lot of what ifs. So this movie not only uses the same voice we had before, but now they have a new magic voice box where they can steal people's voices perfectly. And I don't even know if they actually have to record that. Like, I don't know how they obtain the voice to begin with. But this is technology that we're not even that great at today. I mean, the military might be, some government shit, but back then you could not do that accurately. So that's a major just like, bleh. Okay. This, for some reason, Scream didn't carry the same kind of thump through the entire franchise the way like Halloween or the other ones did. You know, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. We got real tired of it real quick. Like I said in the last one, the first Scream movie was so original and fresh. To make a sequel to it is gonna be, you're going to have to somewhat repeat yourself, and it's gonna seem very not fresh, because a lot of what was fresh about the first one was the addressing of cliches and horror rules and addressing them and still steering into them and then ignoring them. Like, they did a marvelous job of that. But it's really hard to walk that line for multiple movies, especially when people are now expecting it, and have it be good. I haven't personally sat down and tried to write a script ever, especially, a sequel to Scream. So I don't know that I could have done better. I can't say that they fucked up the story and it could have gone in a bunch of other directions, because I don't know that for a fact. But I definitely feel like it could have been done better from the sequel standpoint. Part of the problem is that we became married to following the Sidney Prescott character, I think. So you've got to come up... It basically turns into slasher Scooby-Doo, where we're just waiting for Sidney to unmask the monster in this episode. And I would have made it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. And that's kind of what we're turning into. It's almost like this is an episode of a show where we know what's going to happen. Like Dexter, when it first came out and you're like, oh my god, this is fucking awesome. And then about 6-7 episodes in, you're going, well, fuck. It's getting formulaic. He stalks somebody, he kidnaps him, he kills him. And every episode he had killed somebody. And then they finally threw a curveball, had an episode where he didn't kill anybody. Keep you on your toes a little bit. So you're going to have your fans of the franchise who stick with you regardless. They're down to ride. They're dick riders, they're marks. And most of the time, that's who you're making the sequels for. You're not going to attract a new audience with sequels. And you just lose people along the way. I don't know really of any horror franchise that has gained or maintained followers throughout its entirety as the sequels progressed, besides maybe Halloween. But they have a weird situation there with the reboots, and so that you're able to present them as new or fresh instead of just direct sequels most of the time, even though I don't want to get too much into Halloween. But Scream really goes from about as good as you can get in the first one to about as bad as you can get in this one. Not super familiar with 4, but I did sit down and watch like the first half of it a couple weeks ago, and I was somewhat interested in it. It wasn't like a great movie. It's not Halloween 1 or Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's better than this. I was talking over this overly, or not, this uber dramatic opening scene. So Ghostface had his girlfriend's voice on the phone with him, and then now in real life with her had his voice, chased her around, makes her think that it's him, and then just disappears. So now she really thinks that he was just trying to kill her. And I kind of just realized during Scream 2 that they have Ghostface talk when not wearing the mask. I mean, Ghostface talks when face-to-face with people wearing the mask, and his voice is changed. So I guess since the voice box is completely made up, you can make up that you're able to stick it inside the mask and have it work and seamlessly steal somebody's voice like that. They're starting to get just a little too far-fetched for me. I didn't like the ending of the last one, and you can just feel by the way that this one starts off that you're not gonna. I mean, it's a scary thought. Oh, they can steal your voice now, and they can make you think that it's somebody you trust, but it's not plausible. And the phone thing is kind of overdone at this point. They were the first and only movie to do it in the original, but then now it's just so expected. The phone call, the hello, whoever the fuck, and the weird, the super descriptive threats. Damn, he's wearing that cocaina today. He's got on that all white socks, white shoes, white pants. He's got that Pablo. She's fine, and she took the time to put on her nice little lingerie. Oh, 4. $20 says you can't do it again. I don't know. Yes, I've been here the whole time. You do this every fucking podcast. You come out and wagging your tail like I just got home from somewhere. You can go back to sleep now. And the death of Cotton. I don't know if Liev Schreiber just didn't want to be in the franchise anymore, or they didn't know what to do with the character. But in the previous commentary track, when I was watching, his acting really stood out to me. He had one of the best acting performances in the last movie. So it's pretty disappointing to see him just fall out at the front end like that. We really could have used some more Cotton Weary. You're not going to use him as a red herring again, though. You've done that twice, but he can't be the hero again. I don't know what you would do with him, but we needed more Liev Schreiber. And it's a new direction to take it in. It's fresh if you do that. And this, Neve Campbell had a lot of commitments. She was still on Party of Five. She was filming 1 or 2 movies, and she's just fucking busy as a bee. So they have little check-in moments with her at the beginning, but the story is heavily driven by Dewey, and Gale. And then later on, their storylines kind of merge for the culmination in the end, which is what I would have preferred for Halloween Resurrection, where they kill the Laurie Strode character. If you're going to do that, you're coming off of H2O, where she had this triumphant return, everything else. If you're going to go back on that and make Michael still alive and then kill her, I think that you need to have her role in the movie similar to Sydney's role in this, where you just check in with her at the beginning, then you go on to somebody else's story, then you check back in with her, then you go on to somebody else's story, and then at some point their stories merge, and you can have Laurie die. But you don't need to have it be right at the beginning of the movie, even if she only has a limited availability, because that kind of ruined that movie. So they used Neve Campbell's limited availability appropriately in this, because they have her there at the crucial moments at the end. Another thing about the Scream movies is that you never really feel like Neve Campbell's going to die. The threat never really feels real. Except for in the first one, I guess, when you're first watching it. But after that, they don't successfully, to me, put her in jeopardy in the audience's eyes. We're just positive that she's going to live, because that's how they're milking this. I always bring up Halloween so fucking much, but in Halloween, Michael is the main through line, and Donald Pleasance, but it's not who Michael's trying to kill. So you get to put new people into that role, and because of that, they're the ones with the stories and the backstories that make the movies then fresh and new again. When you're constantly following the same person around, and that's the story, it gets old. For you kids who are really young, this guy is Dr. McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. For you people that already know that but are still youngish, he was in Can't Buy Me Love, but an even better movie than that was called Loverboy, where he was a pizza delivery boy and a male gigolo. You had to order the pizza with extra anchovies. I think he was in some other movie where he's supposed to be some like teenager with a huge dick, too. I'm not making that up. I'd like her house to be a little more compoundish, Laurie Strode style. She's a little too well adjusted for the traumas she's been through. And we're all ready to Stab 3. So Scream 3 and Stab 3 are being made simultaneously. It's a movie within a movie. I guess we're in LA or something. Hollywood? That's right, it showed us that we were in Hollywood. So Woodsboro is really only the character in the first one, and I think they bring it back in the fourth one. Stu's house. Why do I recognize this guy? What's he in?
He was your goddamn idea, guys. Right, an ex-con with a trashy talk show must have been...
He's the lead singer in Weezer, right?
Detectives, there's no reason to presume the...
Say it ain't so.
He called stab. He was stabbed.
Coincidence? I think not.
I am not a Randy substitute. I'm my own character.
Named Ricky, who works at the video store.
It's an homage. Hey,
So, the writer, Kevin Williamson, in the second one, was not available for all the rewrites and to produce the entire script. So we got a little bit of Wes Craven and some other stuff going on. In this one, he had so many commitments between Dawson's Creek and other things, and they just weren't able to work it out. And they set a hard production date. So they were 6 weeks out, and they had to get a new writer. And he had a treatment from Williamson, and the treatment was of Stab 3 being filmed, but it was supposed to be back in Woodsboro. And when you have that knowledge, this feels a little bit different, because it's a fake Woodsboro within a real Woodsboro instead of a fake Woodsboro in Hollywood. You know, it just adds a little bit more of like a fifth dimension element to it. See what I mean about her haircut? Those bangs are so short. It's like she did it by accident. Literally got an upside down mop on her head. And the head needs replaced. The mop head, that is. So that's what happened with the writing, and so that writer changed it to what we have here. And I'm sure he did the best he could, but when they're not your characters, and you're not necessarily a person who's known for producing authentic feeling dialogue for young people, making really modern feeling scenes play out, it's just gonna come off a little bit differently. The characters aren't gonna be quite have the same feel.
You're such a complex character.
And to be, I don't know, there's just so many complexities. You're writing 2 of each of these characters. Man, David Arquette has gained a bit of weight since the last one. Because I've just watched them all within the last week or so. Is he no longer gimpy? Gets kicked by a mule, eyes go crossed, falls in a well, eyes go straight. I can't figure it out.
Your private self-loathing and that lost and lonely look. Lost and lonely what? You heard me.
She's even got the Seahawk colored business suit on.
Lost and lonely what? Thought you were supposed to be in Woodsboro.
Yeah, I'm surprised
He is in Woodsboro, the fake one.
Listen, I gotta get back to work.
Ooh, sick burn.
You work here?
So when I was talking about Liev Schreiber being in the movie more, that would have been a fresh direction to take it in. Following, you know, getting more exposition on what he's about, his life. Because this shit between Dewey and Gale is retreading what we just did in the last movie. And it's doing it a lot. I don't know if how familiar the last guy or the guy was with the last movie when he wrote this, but he really just repeated the Dewey and Gale conflict that we just had in Scream 2. So on top of so many premises already being retread with the phone calls, the voice changer, all this feeling a little bit stale, on top of that we've got the beginning of the movie being driven by Dewey and Gale and their story being super repetitive of what we got in the last movie. So, I don't know. Maybe these guys could have been brought back and died off a little bit sooner or something, and then we carry on with Liev. Then they bring these guys back for the 4th one, though, again. I don't know. It just gets stale. It's too much of the same. And Randy being gone fucking sucks. I really wanted more Randy. If I could have Randy back, I'd trade Dewey and Gale to have Randy and Cotton back. Call me crazy. Maybe I just committed the cardinal sin. Wes Craven's in this tour group, I believe. Oh, there's Jay and Silent Bob. I forgot about them. They have the cameo. And Wes Craven's holding the camera behind them in the hat. Right there. Who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts. Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. Goodbye, horses. Is this guy wearing a Canadian tuxedo? Shops at the Jay Leno closet? I don't know if he has jeans on, then he is.
Listen, maybe it's time you came home. I'm worried about you.
They try to bring up shit from Sydney's mom's past that everybody's unaware of and connect all the dots at the end. But I'm just not feeling it when we get there. It's not as dramatic of a reveal as they want it to be. It's not as enthralling of a story. It's just It's a so-so sequel in the horror genre. This is a spooky ass scene, if it's the one I'm thinking of. Still got that same picture. They probably just photoshopped that back in '96 and kept it on file and reprint it when they need it. Damn, high-tech cell phone. So that bitch got snake on it. You can smell it. You can smell it. Was this actress ever actually in the movies? It's just pictures of her, right? I'm gonna sneeze, I think. Hold on, guy. Excuse me, sorry. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. I held the mic away. Ooh. Fuck that noise. I've woken up before and thought I saw weird shit that wasn't actually there in that first moment, because you know you're barely above a newborn or like a dog. That's about your cognitive ability when you first wake up in the morning, and your visual acuity's not there, and you're just a little bit fuzzy, and you look up and think you saw some shit you didn't see. Whew. I literally had a dream when I was a kid, or it might have, I don't know what it was, but I thought that I looked up and saw somebody staring through my bedroom window. But my memory of it, the dude looked just like my grandpa. And I know he wasn't actually there, but I'm thinking maybe it was like a hybrid dream, wake, sleepwalk moment where I just projected that I saw this image. I've also had issues in the past because I've been so tired out delivering papers that you don't start hallucinating, but your eyes really do start playing tricks on you, and your brain starts connecting dots really fast because you're in a less than optimal state. And so in order to help you react to things, it starts cutting corners a bit. So for instance, let's say you're turning, a fairly wide corner on like a gravel road, and there's tall grass and weeds off to the edge, and your headlights cast a shadow on the bend of the corner straight ahead. And as you turn that corner, the shadow kind of collapses into the weeds once you go onto the straightaway. It's like an optical illusion. So one night I was tripping out, and as I'm turning, so picture you're driving and you're making a wide left turn, and you got your bright headlights on, and you're almost on the wrong side of the road because there was going to be nobody else coming, and I was going at a speed where I needed the extra room to turn the corner. Anyway, I'm on the wrong side of the road, got my brights on, going on this wide left turn, and the weeds and the grass are casting a shadow over the end of the turn, right? Kind of in the dip, in the center of the turn. And it looks like a large object, like a large black object. And then so as I come out of the corner and hit the straightaway, that shadow disappears because now my lights are going straight down the road. So my brain told me, holy shit, a bear just ran into the weeds over there. Like, you just start seeing shit that's not quite there. And it's all stuff to keep you safe. You see stuff that you think is perceived as danger. And it's your brain trying to keep you safe because you're not running optimally. You didn't drink your V8 today. Frequently, I'll think that like a mailbox or a tree or something like that is just a person standing out when I'm driving.
I'm not happy that I'm 35 playing a 21-year-old. I'm not happy that I have to die naked. And I'm not happy that my
Did we get to see that? I want to see you naked. You were in Playboy a bunch of times, weren't you?
Okay, so let's run the lines.
Fine.
Page 28.
She reminds me of my aunt. My aunt, whatever the fuck.
Hello.
Is that an iMac?
Who's this?
We had those in our computer lab in middle school.
Let me get some clothes. I don't understand why I have to start the scene in the shower. The whole shower thing's been done. Vertigo, hello. And I mean,
Our library's just all computers now. In my day, I was around when the computers started getting put into the library. Like, there was a room in the library that had computers in it called the computer lab. But nowadays, is it just a shitload of computers? Isn't all the information already on the computer? Like, you use the computer to access the information. Do you really need to store the physical version of all the... I don't know. I haven't been to a library or a school in a long time. I didn't get my grade 10.
Goddamn rewrites? How the fuck are we supposed to learn our lines when there's a new script every 15 minutes?
It's not just a new script, it's a new movie.
What?
Now he's got the director's voice.
And it's called Sarah.
Except he is actually the killer. Spoilers. Did I just ruin your day? If you're that invested in the ending of this movie and you're relying on me to not spoil it for you, you severely misspent your... whatever I'm thinking of. You know what I mean. Think what I say. Do it. Those titties, goddamn. Am I the one that looks at her as like kind of the knockoff Pamela Anderson? Am I way off base on that, or is she like? I mean, if you put them next to each other, I would probably say that she's cuter, if I'm being honest. But I just always got the feeling that she was kind of like the second fiddle Pamela Anderson.
Mr. Bridger?
Dude, you just have an 8-to-5 job. You're not actually, yeah, you're not a military dude. You're not a cop. Just get the fuck out of there. Damn, is that a Razor? That's like the nicest phone I've seen on these movies. Same ass boots. All the prop knives. I keep a rotary phone so I can remember all the numbers of my homies who gone. She's trying to fight back at least, but that's what I've always said whenever I see somebody grab a long ass weapon like a bat or an axe, especially if they're a smaller person like a woman. It's too hard to flail that thing around with accuracy and quickly. You miss and they can clock you, you're done. You gotta get them on the first shot if you have something like that.
Look on the Woodsboro murders.
I'm sure you just can't wait to write another one.
What about you?
More Dewey, and
Only place that's real.
they're just acting out their real life in the beginning of this movie. This just seems like what they actually do when they go out to eat in LA.
I waited until you were well. I couldn't stay there.
I can't imagine that that's how he dresses in real life, though. He seems like he's wearing his dad's clothes.
Forever? It was fucking 60 minutes too. People will say, "No, I'll give it the next day," and so on. Look how you just
He really looks like he's dressed as if this is the first date he's ever been on and he had to borrow his dad's clothes to go out on the date.
Here you go. Dewey, you're
Whatty?
not here because of that second-rate Kmart straight-to-video version of me, are you?
Brace yourself, Gail. All of this is actually not about you.
Yeah, it kind of is.
All of what, Dewey? You do know something, don't you?
Off the record.
Always.
I know that you got a birthmark right above your butthole.
Got a call from a woman who said she was with Stab 3. She wanted to see the file on Sid for research.
And?
The boys said no, and she wouldn't give her name. A month later, the station gets broken into. The file room gets ransacked.
Oh, it was Michael Myers stealing the Laurie Strode file.
I think someone on film was trying to find
Dewey, Michael Myers is outside.
It's Jennifer.
He's got a pager. High tech.
Gotta run.
Dewey, where are you
change my clothes. If you've ever wondered why everybody moves to California, it's because this is what every day looks like there. It's just, at a certain point, people get tired of the weather, and they just move out there. Plus, they all think that that's... Everybody thinks that they are going to be famous, and everybody thinks that if they want to be famous, that's where they got to go to do it. And that, I guess that may have been true then. You weren't able to do things on your own and distribute them the way you are now. We're really lucky in that regard. But we don't experience life the same way because we're so caught up in the internet and sharing the life that we're only living so we can share it. So it's I'm pretty much glad I was born exactly when I was. I maybe would have liked to have been born just a few years earlier. No more than, say, 5. Because I got to come up. We had cable TV and shit almost my whole life. We had decent cars, you know. Technology was at a reasonable place, but we didn't have internet and cell phones and all that shit clogging up our lives. I went outside and went on 2-mile long bike rides with my friend out on gravel roads in the country, and nobody knew where the fuck I was, and I was fine. And when you were face to face with somebody or at a group of people out to eat or whatever, you were more involved in the conversation because there was no possibility of an outside thing interfering with you at that moment. Sometimes we were delayed in receiving our news and things of that nature, which is why technology has proliferated so much, because we want to know everything so quickly. So we sacrificed some of the nuance of life for that. One thing I find strange is how popular movies still are, considering how many options are available to us via the internet. I know there's not, like, way more forms of entertainment. Obviously, podcasting is something that has been bred from that. And, you know, watching video game streaming on YouTube. But the amount of people that still sit down and watch, you know, episode after episode of Friends on Netflix and stream movies and all that, it just goes to show you how sedentary people really want to be. Because the internet offers so many opportunities, but most of them are things that you have to do or seek out. They're not just going to come to you. And Netflix and things like that is something that you just sit back and let come to you. You don't have to really interact with it. You're not getting those creative juices going and producing something. So I'm just surprised that more people aren't chomping at the bit to jump out and try these things and try their hand at all these different avenues and, you know, watch videos on things you're interested in and see if you can do it. I don't know. I mean, look at me. I figured out a way to turn watching a movie into a productive task. I merged the two. And it sounds, you know, like I'm pumping up my own ego and shit, but I really do manage to accomplish a fair amount of shit. I've got the videos on YouTube, the podcasts, which are really mostly the same, except for the review videos, which are exclusively on YouTube. I resell stuff on eBay and Poshmark. I deliver the newspapers 4 days a week. And I'm married with a kid. We have this house to maintain. I have, you know, car maintenance, yard maintenance, all that shit. So to manage it all gets... I seems like I run just short on time almost every day. But I put a lot of pressure on myself. For instance, today I really wanted to try to jam one of those review videos in, and I just didn't get it done. And I almost had like this anxiety feeling like that I had failed at something, like there was some deadline I wasn't meeting, and it's all self-imposed. There's almost nobody who cares if I post a video today. I just had decided that I was going to, and then when I realized I wasn't going to be able to get it done, I was disappointed, as if I was letting the whole world down, and nobody even knew about the goal but me.
California Women's Crisis Counseling. My name is Laura. How can I help you?
I do have a crisis.
I think this is supposed to be her mother's voice, but how would he have gotten it?
I killed someone, Laura.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I think you need to call 911.
Well, then the people you need to call are the police.
I'm torn between if I would want to live out secluded like this if I were her, or if I would feel safer around a bunch of people. I know that people are the source of all of her problems. They're the psychopaths. Like, if there's no people, there's no psychopaths. But she hasn't gone to any great trouble to make this place a fortress like a Laurie Strode did in the new Halloween. So I don't know how safe I would feel in her setting. She's got a golden retriever, which is kind of a pussy-ass dog. It's not a Rottweiler or a pit bull, and she's only got one.
Just one question. Do you think it's over, Sydney? Do you?
This is the same voice actor, but the inflection and shit is different. It's not as chilling. But also, that was one of my complaints with the last movie, is how similar it sounded when it's supposed to be a different person speaking through the voice box. It's still their words, just the sound getting changed. And so the machine wouldn't change the inflection and cadence of their sentences to match what Billy and Stu used in the previous movie. And Billy and Stu's cadence and inflection wouldn't even have matched. So while the voice is noticeably different and kind of less scary, it makes sense to me because it's a different person talking through the voice changing box. So justifiable in my mind now. After I just talked that through, I realized that it should sound different. That's the right way. I don't know if they did that on purpose, or if the dude just drank some Drano, smoked a few packs of cigarettes a day. This guy looks like he was on a CW show. I don't know if he was or not, but he just seems like an ancillary character in a CW show.
Applaud for that Sydney part. But you stepped on any poor girl that got in her way.
So you asked her out and she said no?
That has nothing to do with it. Nice ring on your thumb, you fucking douchebag.
50. Dewey saves the day.
He's the kind of guy that makes you watch his screen test at a dinner party or something like that. Hands out headshots at the PTA meeting. What's funny about those two cars sitting there is you can't really tell how old the Porsche is just by looking at it, but I can tell for sure that that's an old Mercedes by looking at it, because Porsches never really changed that much. Somebody who's really into Porsches would be able to tell the difference, but I can't tell one Porsche from another unless I read the writing on the back. And so to me, that Porsche looks pretty modern, but that Mercedes looked 90s as fuck.
She's got a good heart, she does. She just hides it away because she thinks people see that as weak.
Gail's got kind of this beef with the girl playing her in the movie, and Dewey is in a relationship with this girl, or at least her bodyguard, and so she's jealous of that as well. It's like this girl is taking over her life. And I wonder how much of that's art imitating life, because at this point Courtney is getting a bit older. She's not going to be cast for the same roles that she has been in the past. She's not going to be the hot chick, really. What the fuck are your pants? You look like Harriet the Spy got blown up.
Yeah, but you seemed awfully at home.
Not blown up like fire, like Honey I Shrunk the Kids blown up. Or Honey, I Blew Up the Kids.
What's this about, Gail?
Did you know they released Roman? Sarah's call didn't come from his cell phone.
Where did it come from then?
A clone cell phone. It's untraceable.
What is this clone cell phone shit that they always talk about? I've never been watching a murder mystery or anything and been like, well, the killer had a cloned cell phone.
1920.
They just throw that out like
I cannot find any information about her at this age. I mean, nothing.
they cloned his cell phone.
Whole life. Someone there must know something.
Almost her
I think only the police can do that.
years before she met Cindy's father.
And really rich people.
No one has any idea where she went or what
In The
she
Wire,
did.
they clone a pager, so I guess it's possible.
When she vanished. So, why is the killer
But a pager also only receives. It doesn't
why these pictures
send outgoing signals also. The outgoing signal would have like the MAC ID number of the device that was used. I think. Dewey's gonna put it together now. Sydney's mother came to Hollywood. Oh, he's got a little bit of a limp, but his hand works now.
Look at the buildings. The second story, there and there. It's the same. It's the same street 28 years ago.
They never address that, and I don't get. Are they trying to say that him getting stabbed in the back again fixed his nerve damage? Doesn't make any fucking sense. He just gained use of his hand out of the blue after getting more. I love Patrick Warburton. His voice is great.
Come back inside and stay with Jennifer.
Get naked, you strange whore!
Is that an order, Dewdrop? Because keeping stone doesn't work for you.
Get back in the house, Stone. What I call you that wasn't important? What are you doing in there anyway?
Oh, now these killers using Dewey's voice. Sweet.
What did you say? I can't believe you said that. That makes me angry.
Where's the phone the killer is supposed to be using? Is that taped to his face too? Because he seamlessly went from talking on the phone to being in person, and he couldn't hear him. He was right behind him. The guy was standing 8 feet away from him talking.
Dewey? Where is everybody?
Jennifer? Angelina? Tom?
Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie, and Tom Hanks. I was just in the back working on my guitar. Can I play it for you guys? No, you just gotta hear this one part. Cell phones do give you brain cancer, it turns out. Oh. And a knife in your back.
Dewey, is he dead?
Some of the questions people ask.
Everyone back inside!
I guess it's not obvious he's dead just because he collapsed, but Dewey survived getting stabbed in the back just like that twice. Not 2 stabs, 2 different occasions. Oh.
It's her at Jennifer's house. Give him a knife.
Now the killer is sending them faxes. It's the script, but rewritten,
Is the killer right outside?
explaining this scene.
Everybody outside! Outside where you think it's all
Dewey's smart. He's right. It is a trap. Yep, she gets it too. These guys haven't experienced this before. They don't know the mind games. They never met Randy. Randy would have set him straight on this shit. I gotta know how it ends. As if the killer would know that he was gonna use a lighter. Just take the piece of paper outside, you fucker. some of the really clever kills that at least they think they're clever that they come up with in the franchise, the killer's plan would have to be like the stabbing at the beginning of Scream 3 or Scream 2 in the bathroom. It just doesn't make sense that the killer would know that he's going to the bathroom at that exact moment, and then that the urinals are going to be full so that he's going to go in the other stall, and then knows where his head is when he goes to stab him. Like, and then so in this, the killer knows that they're all there reading the faxes, and then also knows that he's going to decide to use a lighter to read it. Oh shit, it's like a 96 Explorer 4-door. Officer Doofy to the rescue. What are those fucking licorice pants? It looks like you're wearing a fruit roll-up.
Where'd he go?
He's out of the car.
Alright, stay close.
That looks like my Ford Ranger. I forgot to check what year this came out. Is this like 2000?
No. He's fast.
My second car was a 2001 Ford Ranger. The super generic, just white ones that like Napa Auto Parts has. A lot of memories in that truck.
Thanks for saving me.
Oh, now you guys are gonna mend your relationship and be friends? We didn't just see this in the last movie.
Happened to you? Who gave you a place to stay? Who are you supposed to be protecting?
If you're familiar with the behavior of dogs, males determine an alpha, and they respect that order. They don't cross each other once the order is established. There might be an occasional challenge, but most of the time, the alpha gets what the alpha wants, and then they have an order. Female dogs do not establish a hierarchy. There's no alpha. They're constantly jockeying for position, and when it comes to people, attention. So right there, when she just walked up, bitching Dewey out over him spending time with Courtney, it's almost like this animalistic thing. Neither one of them is submitting to the other as the alpha, and so they're competing for the attention of Dewey and scrapping over it.
Maureen Prescott's murder.
But we know who killed Maureen Prescott. Billy
Why
Jones
underline the
was
I?
They even told Sydney how they did it.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, you said in your book that Sydney got it wrong once before. She accused Cotton Weary of murdering her mother.
Now we're gonna rewrite the murder of Maureen Prescott. Now I remember why I didn't like the explanation for this story.
I told you I don't know.
That was already sewn up in the original.
There was a third killer.
You're gonna rewrite the original, and there was a third killer
I have a press conference in an hour.
that Billy and Stu didn't tell anybody about.
A very angry mayor.
Okay, look, we all know this has something to do with Stab 3, but what we do not know is why the killer keeps leaving pictures of Maureen Prescott taken over 25 years ago.
Same studio Stab 3 is shooting.
That's the problem when you commit to doing these iconic franchises for commentaries and reviews, is you start off so strong with the originals and the ones that started the craze and made it possible for there to be sequels. But then by the end, you're just putting dirty socks in your mouth and setting them on fire.
You'll know it.
Was that a threat?
Boys, why don't we compare our gun calibers later? The issue is Maureen Prescott.
They're...
Oh, the issue is Sydney Prescott and even
Oh, shit.
justice.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. They're intending for McDreamy here to be not only the detective who's trying to solve it, but be a potential love interest and be a kind of a red herring for a possible killer.
I want to make sure you're.
Sid's still looking fine as fuck, and she's still got Derek's letters around her neck. I liked her hair better in the last one.
Actually, what was I doing up there?
Everybody's hair was better in the last one. What happened?
She alright?
No, Gail. Didn't take a direct hit.
So the news said this was the precinct. Who's this guy Kincaid?
It's just the film's first name that we came up with when we were writing the script. He doesn't actually exist.
The killer called me. Yeah, he found me.
Dewey looks like he has the profile of a wine bottle on his forehead. Every time I see him, I just see the neck of a beer bottle or wine bottle imprinted on his forehead. At least they get the continuity of that shit right, though.
Oh my God, Sydney.
That's
You ran fast or what?
that's something I can appreciate, because there's a few of the Halloween movies where they have continuity issues with scars changing or masks changing, and that really takes you out of it. As far-fetched as the story may be, I don't get removed from
What do you say? Oh, you know.
it. When you have continuity issues, or like Loomis's scar changing in Halloween 4, back and forth from the egg to the little squiggles, or the sudden appearance of a different mask, but it's supposed to be the actual Michael, you remind me
Else ever used your phone?
that I'm watching a movie. I'm not invested in the story anymore. I'm not looking at these as real people. Once you do that, I'm completely reminded that this is a show and that this is all fake, and that they didn't even have the respect for their own product to keep it consistent with the continuity.
This is my mother, Dewey. Why didn't you say something?
So it just removes the jeopardy from scenes and your investment in the characters, because you're just reminded that it's fake. And that was another tangent off on Halloween. I just can't help myself. And that's partly because, I mean, fuck, I just watched and did commentary and reviews on all 10 Halloween movies within like a month and a half. And that was heavily back-end loaded, because the first one I did a few weeks before I started knocking out the other ones, and I've gotten more rapid with them as I've progressed. It's becoming easier, but at the same time it's becoming harder, because like with this movie, we're getting into zones where I'm going to have to do commentaries and reviews on stuff that doesn't have as intriguing of a lore or just as much to say. And there's also just not as much to tear apart. Like, Halloween Resurrection is a horrible movie, but there's shit to bitch about constantly. This is just pretty generic.
We miss you in Woodsboro, guys.
So this is supposed to be Randy's sister, and we at least get a kind of cameo appearance by Randy via videotape from the past.
Oh my God.
Randy would have loved YouTube. He'd be on YouTube all the time.
And they're giving up my virginity to Karen Kolchak at the video store was probably not
Karen Kolchak. That should be a
creepy Karen. Shut up. She's a sweet person.
that should be a question on a trivia about the Scream franchise. Who did Randy lose his virginity to?
15 minutes. Paul, 15 minutes.
This is what it's like to have a kid. Trying to take a shit. Can you show me your Lego structure in a minute?
That my life's work will help save some other poor soul from getting mutilated. If this killer does come back, and he's for real, there are a few things you gotta remember. Is this simply another sequel? Well, if it is, same
So they're gonna bring Randy into the picture
find yourself dealing with an unexpected
to kind of explain that this is supposed to be a trilogy, and that it's not made up on the spot, and that it's the culmination of a story like a trilogy would be, that is well thought out, and they know the end before they begin. So they're trying to use Randy to legitimize the storyline, basically, this bullshit story, and him to say, oh no, it's a trilogy, and all of a sudden you have stories from the past that don't make sense, and characters introduced, and but while I like the Randy cameo, the explanation is bullshit. Plus they come up with a Scream 4. It's not like a true trilogy like the original Star Wars trilogy. Those were all written before the first one was ever made. The Lord of the Rings trilogy. Even the Godfather trilogy isn't really a trilogy. They get away with it because the stories don't interfere with each other, because it's just a straight timeline. But there's no way that Godfather 3 was written the same time Godfather 1 was. They shouldn't even really be part of the same thing. It should be Godfather 1, Godfather 2, and then the Godfather 3 should have been called The Death of Michael Corleone or something like that. It shouldn't have been a part of the series that way. Like if you made an offshoot Halloween movie and it was just about Laurie Strode and you just called it Laurie Strode or The Death of Laurie Strode or whatever. Like a spin-off. Like a bottle cap. We fresh out of Sprite.
Idea. I'll hook up with you guys later.
You want us to come with you?
I work better alone. And why don't you try to figure out where those other pictures
I work better alone too. We have something in common. Maybe we should be friends and we could work better alone together. You gonna go outside, cunt muscle? Alright. I was talking to my dog. If you want to go outside, you can too. If you want to respond to cunt muscle, I'll call you it. I'm not a big fan, but to each their own.
What are you doing? Being your weathers. What the hell are you doing? I am being weathers. Here's how I see it at that little house.
There's two of them.
I'm being stalked. Because someone was to kill me? No, because someone was to kill you. So now, starting now, I go where you go. That way, if someone was to kill me, I'll be with you. It's just they really want to kill you, they won't kill me. Don't kill me.
It's decent logic, but you're gonna be right there, so maybe they'll just get you while they're there and get two birds stoned at once.
For you, that must be quite a stretch. Thanks, buddy. Ha.
The only way that you can kill two animals with one bullet
Get weathers.
is if they're standing right next to each other. And the second one's an accident.
Don't tell me.
The plight of the black cameraman in Scream 2 is becoming more legitimate to me. As I watch these fucks toil in this mess, I realize that I too would just get the fuck out of Dodge. I'd just be like, all this nonsense is happening here. If I'm not here, it ain't gonna be happening to me. The only person that's not true for is probably Sydney. Sydney would have to experience the nonsense wherever she goes, but everybody else can just get the fuck out of there.
Her name's Maureen Prescott. Back then it was probably Roberts.
Oh, they all gotta be the hero.
But you look
What about Liev Schreiber? He could have been our goddamn hero.
it's uncanny.
How was that for Princess Leia?
I was this close. So who gets it?
The one who sleeps with George Lucas.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Shh.
mean to make a sore subject for
It's a
you.
funny joke. I wonder if she did sleep with George Lucas, because obviously this is Carrie Fisher. She did play Princess Leia. Didn't do very well after that,
I don't work for the cops.
to my knowledge. And her voice is hella raspy.
Would you work for
She's been gargling rock salt
The president.
of the studio. She's like, bitch, president of the studio has more power than the president on your little dollar bill there. And his dick's bigger too. I mean, what?
healthcare weathers or not?
This movie points towards something that has been revealed recently, semi-recently, through the media and the whole Me Too movement, was that in Hollywood, these types of deals do happen, and they are so frequent that there's language in contracts about them related to fines and offenses and how many you can commit. It's a bit disturbing. So it's very accurate in that regard. The whole
Amazon, Psycho, Creatures from the San Andreas.
fuck, what's the word I'm looking for?
Back in the development's heyday.
When you use somebody for their ability and or not blackmail, extort, they extort sex out of Maureen to get her into these movies. I don't even know if extort is. You guys know where I'm going with it. Oh, you're washing your face in the bathroom? We're gonna get a repeat of the Scream 1 scene? This, of course, feels far less fresh to me because I just watched Scream 1 like a week ago. if it had been years since you'd seen Scream 2 and you watched this, you might be on the edge of your seat. But I'm just like, just fucking saw this. What the fuck? Alright. I gotta take a piss. Y'all listen to the movie.
I thought, well, if there's no movie, then no one would care if I took some souvenirs. Souvenirs? I may never win another role, so these may be my only memories, you know, of Hollywood. I know it's weird because it's your life and all, but I wanted to make you proud, Sydney. Oh, well, I'm sure I would have been. The real Sydney, the real person. I wish it would have worked out.
I wish you would have worked out. Do some squats.
Hey,
You forgot your butt plug? Ma'am,
Angelina.
you dropped your book. Ma'am. Was that Gump? It sure as hell was. I'm gonna need you to go down in the basement there. Down there you're gonna find a feller. He gonna sneak up on you. I think he likes you. I think maybe you blow him. Maybe you shoot him. Maybe you get a tater. Use it as a silencer. You just a boy. You ain't not talk like that. Not funny, ha ha, funny queer. I like you. You're pretty. Some folk call it a garage door. I call it a bay door. That's where they killed Tatum. So this is a weird blast from the past for her. She's walking through one of the most horrific scenes of her life. Recreated to a perfect degree. And she's hearing the interactions with Billy in her head and the fucking stuffed animal, close call, the PG-13 relationship. What's that? We gotta be getting close to the final scene. There's just a lot of insignificance going on here. I didn't see what happened there. Her door just shut. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And they managed to make the closet the exact same so that it blocks the door like that. That's one of those weird fucking things that you would only know if that was your room, but shit like that does happen in houses. In our old apartment, if you had the dishwasher open, you couldn't open the refrigerator at all. They were right across from each other, and there was about an inch of space if the dishwasher door was open. So you just, somebody'd be loading the bottom part of the dishwasher, and you would have to push the bottom shelf in, close the dishwasher, get in the fridge, grab your milk or whatever, put it back, close the fridge, open the dishwasher, pull the shelf out, and continue loading the dishwasher. Gives me faith. If you can be an engineer and actually design an apartment building that gets built, and to be that horrible at your job, I might be able to make it somewhere in this world. I might be able to be pretty successful. If you can get a passing grade for that effort. You probably just heard a bunch of noise and junk. I was heating my coffee back up. And now I'm turning my TV and speaker, so the movie probably just got considerably louder. Welcome to the podcast where I walk around my house and narrate my life. I don't give a fuck. Oh, Sydney. I like the way you blend green and brown together. Colors complement each other very well. Was no Sharon Stone. So something I brought up in the previous two commentaries that I haven't mentioned in this one, excuse me, is that they actually hired Stu to come back and play the killer in this. Excuse me. He said he was paid to do it. And we all know that didn't come to fruition. But they obviously thought they had a solid enough storyline where they could believably bring the Stu character back into the fray and have him be the killer. And that would have definitely played better if the movie took place in Woodsboro like it was supposed to in the first treatment. Excuse me, but still, Stu had a fairly definitive death in the first one, and if he had survived, he would have been arrested, and it would have been in the news. Everybody would know. So you would have to go with like some weird twin brother angle, or since this is a movie being made within a movie, it's an actor playing Stu who just looks remarkably similar to him. I don't know what they were going to go with for that. But I wouldn't mind more Stu. I really liked Stu. And he plays a good psycho because he's got that edge to him. He's just a little bit crazy and goofy. Spit flying out of his mouth. So energetic. It would really add something to this movie to have that character be in it. And for him, I know that, especially if you're an artist or a creator or an actor where you have to be chosen for roles, you could be the best actor in the world, have all the confidence in your ability, you could have monologue after monologue prepared, and if nobody puts you in their TV series or their movie, you're shit out of luck. So for him to get the opportunity to be in Scream 3 after being the killer in Scream 1, that would have been a great opportunity for his career. Obviously he got paid, so no complaints there on his behalf. That's a good day at the office to get paid for something you don't do. But he probably wishes that he got to be in it instead of just getting paid to not do it. If somebody were going to pay me to do a podcast, which is a pretty redonkulous idea at this point, but if they were going to, I would much rather prefer actually do it than get paid to do nothing.
Oh God, I forgot your birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Robin.
I'm really disconnected from the whole scene of the hourly workforce and sick days and paid vacations. I'm grounded in the world where if you don't do, you don't get paid. So a day off is not getting paid. That's what that means. So you look at days off differently that way. Occasionally, yeah, it feels shitty to not be able to take a day off to go to the beach with your friends or your family or whatnot. But days off become a necessity, or you take days off only out of necessity, out of dire emergency, because it actually means something to you. You're not being forced to sit in this place for a certain amount of time. You have a certain amount of tasks you need to accomplish, and those tasks are going to be directly result in how successful you are, and you're the one who gains from your effort. That's the type of shit I like. And I don't like set time frames, and I don't like being trapped in a certain spot like I'm a fucking pet. You got to stay in this office from this time to this time, and we'll pay you this much per hour regardless of what you do. I don't like that. Of course, in an hourly spot, you can't let your performance slip, but you could also be, there could be 5 people there doing the same thing you do, all making the same amount of money. You could be the best one, and you're not really going to see the extra gain from that. And you could do something that directly results in the company making a bunch more money, and you're still going to get your hourly wage. I like the higher risk, higher reward notion. That was kind of a tangent, but what brought me to that idea was the comments on Stu about him actually probably wanting to be in it even though he was paid. Because you're not as accustomed to things like vacation days and sick days and paid days off. You're used to doing something and getting paid for it, so it kind of fucks up your sense of value when you get paid for something that you didn't do. You feel like a fraud.
What do you know about trilogies?
You mean like movie trilogies?
You seem to like movies, detective.
Only Mark. What do you want someone to keep calling you, Sydney?
I'll call you Mark when you catch the killer, detective.
I'll call you Mark when you catch the killer. Is she saying, like, implying that she'll be on like a friendly basis with him? His face was always just a little bit skinny, like his head was a little bit small for his body, and he still at this point hadn't quite filled into it. But when he gets on Grey's Anatomy, it just hit at the perfect time. He kind of toiled in just mediocrity. He was famous, but he didn't get the greatest roles. He wasn't in blockbuster movies. And then he got on that damn show, and he was the greatest thing since pita bread.
Day in and day out. The violence that people do to each other. You get haunted.
He exploded onto the scene like iPods. Around the same time, too.
I know what it's like to see ghosts that don't go away.
And he was a really substantial part of that story, but I don't think that he is so much anymore because they've had so many seasons since he left. My wife watches it. I don't have a fucking clue. But if I had to guess, I'd say they're like on season 19 now, and he was maybe on the first 8 of them.
But the best way to stop being haunted is to be with people.
So at a certain point when you've no longer been on half the show, but they've cycled through characters like that. That show's weird to me. It's like the people who watch it, they just want to cry. They're watching it knowing it's going to be terribly sad. It's super repetitive stuff. All this just generic drama within a hospital setting. And they just want to cry. So that's why they watch it. My dog lost her bone under the chair, so she's gonna whine until she gets it out. She's a genius. I should have got it for her. Now she's gonna sit here and chew on it and make loud ass noises. I have a pit and she just chews on shit. Like, she's going at a bone right now. It would break my teeth if I did what she's doing with this fucking bone.
Because it means that we're dealing with an ordinary flesh and blood killer. And I'd rather handle it like that.
Sorry, I'm not talking about the movie terribly or a tremendous amount. I'm just not super into it, and I keep going off on these tangents. I gotta have something to talk about. I can't just put off me sitting here in silence watching the movie. That's not an acceptable product.
We have to think, strategize. No is the key to everything.
It's weird. These cars, they're pieces of shit now, but when they were back then, they were brand new and people thought they were nice is hilarious. Because you get to see what cars lasted through the times and what didn't. And these Explorers Just so generic and representative of the time. Now the killer's using Sydney's voice. I was super off when I said that we must be getting close to the end. Wishful thinking.
Looks like we're going to that party after all.
Going to the party. Party over here, fuck you over there.
Yeah, well, actually, we're here to see Sydney.
Sydney's here. She's right there.
It's the wrong one.
It's not Sydney. Sydney.
He's the token black guy from Not Another Teen Movie, right?
Sydney Prescott?
And it's not a token black guy in this, but he kind of seems out of place. Like they just cast him so they would have a black guy. Does he even speak that much?
Could the dude have more money?
I haven't been paying that much attention.
Secret screening room. It was like the scene back in the 70s. It was like drinks and drugs and girls and movies and shit.
There is a tremendous amount of white people compared to ethnic people in this movie, though. Like, I think that black guy is like the only person who's not white.
There's a psycho killer on the loose, and you want to go traipsing around this gigantic mansion? Have you ever actually seen this damn movie? Every time this dude enters the room, he ends up a goddamn shish kebab.
I'll go with you on that.
There.
This is like a better made Halloween Resurrection.
You're not sleeping. Where?
We're going to stay here and wait for Sid.
We'll be right back.
You're not supposed to say that. But the killers always say it. So they know they'll be right back. Stu said it in the first one. This dude, again, you probably know already, this dude turns out to be the killer. So he can say, I'll be right back. It's an odd situation. Because serial killers, stalkers, people who do seedy things like that, commit violence, they're statistical rarities. So they don't exist in a high density in the population. So they don't really seem to cross paths and interact with each other very often. So it almost seems like the best way to be safe is to be the one doing the dirt. I know that sounds fucked up to say, but statistically, if you're thinking about it, if you're stalking somebody, what are the odds that somebody's stalking you at the exact same time? Probably not very high. And if you're out committing murders, what are the odds that somebody's out committing murders in that place at the exact same time as you? Not very good, right? And very rarely do you hear about the murderer or the person committing the act getting the tables turned on them and them getting the short end of the stick in the situation or the interaction. Sounds like I'm promoting crime. Oh, pause the movie. My fucking thing started buffering just when I was getting comfortable. Oh, it's playing again. Minor hiccup.
Do you have caller ID on your cell phone?
She just asked if he had caller ID on his cell phone. Use it. He's pulling out his phone. He's dialing. Just push the button. Phone so modern. So that was the first type of flip phone we had. All it was the mouthpiece flipped out of the bottom, and it was still this huge fucking brick, and you couldn't do anything on it. My first phone that I had to wait till I was 18, and I had to buy I had to wait till I could pay for it myself, essentially. So I went and signed up with Sprint because they had the lowest security deposit for me to start an account, and I got the Samsung A900. You can Google it. It was Samsung's take on the Motorola Razr, but it was a much better phone. This phone was so fucking badass. It had the highest resolution screen you could get at the time. It had a really good feeling keyboard. Back then we still had predictive text. We didn't have a big spelled out keyboard. It had the ability to play MP3s. When you closed it on the front, it had a small screen that displayed the time, notifications, etc. It had a play button, a fast forward button, and a rewind button for the songs. And then the camera was was up where the hinge was mounted in the center of the hinge, and also rotated, so you could point it in any direction you wanted, and you could take pictures with the phone open or closed and the camera facing you or not. It was literally the first front-facing camera, but it was all one camera, and you had to rotate the lens back and forth from one side to the other. It was a super dope phone. It was the shit. And I remember thinking I was such hot shit because I could get on the internet and watch a 45-second sports highlight clip. And at the time, I just remember thinking how badass it would be if I could just watch TV on this thing. Because as a youngin' back in the day, you had certain bottlenecks. Even though we had cable, we had internet, you only had access to it at certain points. Maybe you only had one TV in your house with cable. Maybe you had shitty dial-up internet. Maybe you had an old fucked up computer. So even though the stuff was available, you personally maybe weren't always able to access it when you wanted to. You wanted your independence of being able to just go, I have this in my hand and I can watch whatever the fuck I want right now, even though I'm here at my grandparents' house and they're watching Seinfeld or whatever it is. And I really yearned for that ability, but I didn't see it being such a realistic possibility, especially in the near future like it was. And now we just take it for granted. We have it, and we got everything so fast, and there's so many options. If we had just been handed the ability to watch TV on a handheld device back then, it would have been all anybody could talk about. But it came along quickly, but also at such a pace that we were introduced gradually, and so the effect once it dropped was not so heavy. We were already used to being able to stream Netflix before we could do it on our phone. So it was an easy dot to connect for you to be able to do it on your phone. The technology just kind of made sense. Anywho, rant on cell phone technology. That Samsung phone was so awesome. If they made like a modern version capable of what phones could do today, I might rock that shit. Before my stuff started buffering, I was talking about something. I don't remember what the fuck it was. Woo-hoo, witchy woman. She got the moon in her eyes. I don't know where that came from. It just popped into my head. Oh, that was a fucked up fall. I like action shots like that, except for I know too much about physical injuries and brain trauma now. When I realize that a person actually had to do that, I just think about his back and his neck and his head. And the damage he's doing to himself, and how he probably didn't get paid that much, and someday he's going to be an old man who can barely walk, and he was an unknown stuntman. Those are the paths we choose. Not everybody can be a unicorn. I get it. But it's weird for me to think about as a person who is semi-fortunate in the life that I've had, the abilities that I possess. I wasn't born dumb. I'm not ugly. I have pretty good physical ability. I'm reasonably athletic. I was good in school. I didn't like school. I didn't do my homework and shit like that, but I was a good test taker and I got good grades for the most part. It's just, I got a good roll of the dice. So, for me to look at people who maybe didn't realize the gamble they were taking when they went down the path they went, and to see how it's probably not going to end in a spot that they're going to be as happy as they could have, and that they're probably not going to have earned enough compensation to be comfortable financially once they reach that point, It just makes me a little bit sad for them. But they could love it. I mean, when you look at fighting, like for every Floyd Mayweather, there's been no other Floyd Mayweathers really, is from an earning power point of view. But for every, let's go to MMA, for every GSP that is made a good amount of money from fighting and is going to be able to retire comfortably and never have to worry about it, also retired probably with the least amount of damage taken, so he's going to have that work on his side too. But for every one of those who makes that money, there are probably 5,000 guys that can barely make enough to pay their bills and get beat down to the point that they have to retire and never accumulate anything. They're basically paycheck to paycheck their whole career, and then they have to try to pick up the pieces and figure out a new life after they've already compromised themselves physically and possibly mentally. It's just a rough spot to put yourself in, but that reward is so valuable. The glory, the adulation, of course the money, the publicity, the fame, that they're willing to put that on the line. But I was guilty of wanting to do that when I was younger. I don't really so much anymore. Plus I'm at the age where it's not realistic thing to start out. Being that I'm 31, getting into something like that at this age, by the time I got to a competent level, I would be in 40. Anyway, when I was younger, yeah, I knew you got fucked up. I knew you get knocked out. You probably get a concussion. But the weight of the actual ramifications later on down the road compared to the reward that most people don't get, I didn't have a full scope of that. So I feel like a lot of the guys who get involved when they're young and, you know, never quite make it out of the bottom tier and maybe at the most make 10 grand for a fight and then end up having slurred speech or something down the road because they got knocked out 5 times. I don't think when they were 21 or 22 they really understood that that was a possibility and that they would maybe have, you know, memory issues when they're 60. And maybe if when they're 60 they would go back and trade whatever monicum of success they had in the fight game for their health and their cognitive ability back.
Hello? Hello? Who is this? Who is this?
It's the one thing you want to have when you're an old chap. What do the most interesting old people have? They have stories and knowledge about history. And so if you lose your memory or your ability to effectively communicate it, you miss out on a big part of what it means to become an older person. When you're young, you want a poo-poo experience because you get told constantly that you're not going to get an opportunity or something, or that somebody's going to be placed ahead of you in line because of experience, and you think that that's probably not justified. But the older you get, the more you truly see how valuable experience is. It's really intangible, and you can't teach it. You just simply cannot teach it. You have to get into things as a novice and work your way through them and learn them through reps and constantly refine. And then you see how that's the pathway for everything that you want to do. That's what I'm doing with this podcast. I'm just getting into it and starting it, and I'm producing a product, and then I look at it with an objective eye, see how I can improve it, I refine it, I try again, do the same process, refine it, try again, refine it, try again, and it becomes more natural to me, and I feel more comfortable with the process every single time. And then as you become more comfortable, then you start mixing things into it to complicate it a little more, because if it's too easy, you get bored. So when I started making YouTube videos, they were mainly about my reselling stuff and me going to the gym and me driving around and me just kind of ranting, because I knew that I wanted to make videos, but I didn't know where I wanted to go with it. I just knew I wanted to start. So then by the time I started making reviews, I wouldn't say I was comfortable in front of the camera and making the videos, but I was much more comfortable. And I had a process that I had already established for how I could take a couple pieces of video, smash them together, post them on YouTube. I had the account established, so I was comfortable there. So all the nerves about the actual posting of the video were gone. It was just the actual making of it, and just making sure that I'm confident in what I'm saying, and that I'm delivering it properly, that I'm trying to look at the camera, that all those kinds of things. Doing the podcast thing and the commentary thing is a little bit more comfortable because I only have to worry about what I'm saying, and I can really follow my train of thought and drift off without having to worry about the visual image I'm presenting and looking at the camera, etc. That's an added element of it that I have to be thinking about the entire time, and it takes away a percentage of my thought capacity for following the tangents and going in the directions that I could go in. Sometimes I get too worried. I catch myself because I usually have to use my front-facing camera because the audio recording ability is better, because on this phone the speakers face out of the screen. So if I use the back-facing camera, it doesn't record the audio nearly as well. So while I'm recording videos, I can see myself in the video. And sometimes I catch that and I totally lose my train of thought, or I have to correct how I'm sitting or something like that, and I will forget completely where I was going with that stream of consciousness, and I have to kind of start over and reset. So then I get more comfortable with that, keep posting videos. Then I decide my thumbnails are boring and I need to figure out how to start making new thumbnails. So then I learn that process, start implementing those. Then that just becomes part of the routine. And you just slowly make it more complicated till someday you have this really awesome product, but you built it piece by piece. If you just look at somebody that you admire and want to emulate, and you looked at they're not hopefully a finished product, hopefully they're continually improving. But if you look at what they are today, and you try to imagine how you're going to be there, you can't think of it all in one step, because that's overwhelming. That'll give you a panic attack, trying to picture yourself going from somebody who wants to do stand-up comedy to being Kevin Hart. That seems like a ridiculous feat, but that's not how you do it. You start by going out and being shitty and getting in reps and learning how to be in front of people and how to carry yourself on stage and how to write jokes and how to work them. And then you slowly build up and you build up and you build up, and then eventually, maybe one day, you will have refined your craft enough to where you reach that level through experience and reps. Very few people, that you do have your exceptions, but you've ever heard the term the exception that proves the rule? They're so rare, and the reason they stand out is because they go against the rule. If the rule didn't exist, this exception wouldn't stand out so much, if that makes sense. We're getting kind of the culminating scene, and I've just been going off on all kinds of different tangents. This podcast is not much about this movie. I'm sorry if you're a super big fan of this movie and you think that I did a shit job. This is just the way it went. I don't necessarily have a set format when I'm starting. The movie commentary is obviously the goal, but it's more or less just to give me a structure to follow so that I have something to talk about and give me ideas continuously of directions to go. So if I do just start free-forming it and then I end my thought, I can wrap back around to the movie, and it gives me a scaffolding. It's something for safety. Excuse me. Back to the other point I was making, though. So then you start, I start making commentaries and reviews, and then those start becoming more comfortable. I start getting a process down for that. Start figuring out, okay, well then maybe I can start doing top 5 lists, or I can start doing, offer conjecture on, who's doing all the kills in Scream 1, who's on the phone, who's wearing the ghost face thing, is it Stu, is it Billy? you can start taking it in these weird directions, but you have to be comfortable with the process first, because you need the other tools before you can start reworking how you're going to do it, if that makes any sense. She just found a weird safe behind the bookcase. We're in kind of the final chase scene now. Gale and Dewey were tied up. McDreamy showed up. Ghostface showed up. She's hearing her mom's voice now. Along the same lines, everybody wants to be big and strong, right? Well, I don't know that everybody wants to be big and strong, but everybody wants to be physically capable, I think. If they don't, I don't understand their motivation at all. I don't know how you wouldn't want to be physically competent, but let's forget that term everybody. There are people who want to be big and strong. We can agree on that, right? And we can also agree that a lot of them put no effort into that. Why do people want to be big and strong? So they can pick up heavy stuff, right? That's what strength is for, isn't it? So they want to be strong so that they can pick up heavy stuff, but they don't realize that they're looking at the situation backwards. You have to start picking up heavy stuff and then you get strong. The heavy stuff comes first. You don't get your dream job and then do the work you want to. You do the work and then you get your dream job. If you want to be a musician, an artist, a comedian, whatever, you don't get hired to do that job and then figure it out and start doing it. You figure it out and start doing it, and then you get the job. And nobody ever hires you. You just work your way into it, where one day you're competent enough that people will pay you to do it. A lot of people who want to get into fitness and stuff, they're embarrassed because they have to start small. But I have a tremendous respect for people that I see in the gym working hard, trying their best, and doing things correctly. If I can tell that you're pushing yourself to the best of your ability, but more importantly, that you're doing everything right, I have way more respect for you than somebody who comes in, loads the shit up with a bunch of weight, and barely does it with half-ass form, and walks around with his shoulders cocked back like he's the shit. He's building himself up. That guy is actually more susceptible to criticism about his physique than somebody who is weak and knows they're weak. He's trying so hard to make himself look like this that any little shot at his ego is going to really have an effect. Anyway, that was off point. So basically my point is you got to put it in the work. They have that saying, they call it work because it works, but that's not necessarily always the case, right? I mean, slaves worked and they didn't get shit out of that. Some work is just fucking work. But you can choose things to work on that you get something out of at the end. And it's going to be gradual. But once you have an understanding of that, you really don't look at it the same way. You don't look at it as several years of your life ruined, because you understand that it's the process of getting from point A to point B. And then you also understand that point B isn't the end. It continues on from there until one day you quit or die. But you should be continuing to try to get better the entire time. So this is... I've really just been ignoring this whole final scene. This is her brother, and he's going to plant the voice recorder, the voice changer, on the studio head and make it look like him. They had to change it up with the number of killers. We couldn't have 2 killers again. We just had 2 killers in the last one and the one before. So you can't do all 3 screams 2 killers. So you either have to increase it or decrease it. So they go with the 1 killer this time. So her mom came out to Hollywood to be in movies. They traded her sexual favors for a chance to be in the movies. She got pregnant and had him, and then left him there, went to Woodsboro, and started this whole happy life.
The sole survivor. Who's the one who bravely faced down the psychopath and killed her with her own knife?
And he's got holes in his suit from her shooting him, but he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Of course she didn't shoot him in the head. She shot, I mean, not in the heat of the moment, but she shot Billy in the head in Scream 1. She shot Billy's mom in the head in Scream 2. Sydney knows her shit. She knows you gotta go with headshots. Sibling fight. Mommy hit me. I didn't do anything. She took my G.I. Joe. Leave your sister alone. Okay. Oof. Oof. Since I went on this huge tirade about, I wouldn't call it a tirade, it wasn't angry. This lecture, this monologue about the work, and it's, if you really want, like really want something like that to work out for you, anything I mentioned, starting a business even, becoming a YouTube star, becoming any type of media influencer, having a podcast, that basically needs to become your hobby, because unless you're famous going into it, starting a podcast or something is not going to return you monetary gain, if it ever does, but it's definitely not going to in the beginning. You're really going to have to work at it. So you kind of have to have your regular life, your regular job, your regular hustle, however you pay the bills. You kind of have to have that covered. And then your hobbies, playing video games, watching Netflix, all that kind of shit that you do that you really doesn't have an ROI, you have to start cutting into that stuff with whatever your true dream is. Start making videos during that time. Start recording stuff during that time. Your goal needs to become your hobby when you're in that kind of a situation. And if it's what you really want to do, it shouldn't be a problem for you. Granted, you could turn on the TV and get stuck there watching it and get sucked into an episode of Game of Thrones or whatever. And I still do a fair bit of TV watching, but it's also the time that I spend with my wife. We sit down and we watch shows that we like together once the kid's gone to sleep, and it's kind of our unwind time. It's just our thing. So that's time that I set aside for that. It's not ruining my productivity time, because I wouldn't be doing anything else anyway. That's the time that's committed to that. But I haven't played a video game other than with my son. So again, that's kind of our family time. I will sit down and play a video game with my son. It's hanging out with my son. But I haven't played a video game solo in years. Once I became really concerned with the future and security, especially financially, and just building something, there's not space in my brain or time in my day for that. There's just not. I still have an interest in them. I own a PS4. I have a stack of video games. Some of them I've never opened. I have the Friday the 13th game because I bought it one day at Goodwill. It was brand new and I thought it looked cool. I've never opened it. It just... I sometimes, maybe I'm too focused, or tunnel vision is the better term for it, because I'll let things that aren't crucial to what I'm doing at the moment just sit by the wayside for a long period of time. I have a new CD player for my car in my garage that's still brand new in the box, that's been sitting there for 14 months, since the Christmas before last. And all it's waiting for is for me to put it in my car. And I am well aware I have the knowledge and the ability to do that installation. The stereo that's in there now that I'm replacing, I put in there myself. It's just a matter of popping the dash open, cutting some wires, and reattaching them. It wouldn't be the most difficult process. But the gain versus the time spent, I just haven't brought myself to actually do it. Now, I would definitely rather spend the time doing it myself than pay somebody else to do it, because that's good. The ratio there is not equal. Dollar wise, it would save me money to use my own time than to pay them and save my time. But that's just an example. My parents got me a 49ers jersey for my birthday 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. And I've never worn it. It's sitting in my closet with the tag still attached. Because I look at jerseys, I'm a little bit, not, I wouldn't say old school, but early 2000s, jerseys were a fashion statement. If you had jerseys, they were almost like a collector's item. I treated my jerseys like a fucking flag. I never washed them. I hung them up. I took them off when I was eating. I took them off when I was in chemistry class. I folded them up nice when I didn't have the opportunity to hang them. Fuck, I forgot where I was going with that. How did I get started on the jersey thing? God damn it. We can watch this guy get shot while I try to think of why I was talking about that. Oh, so the jersey my parents bought me. So I look at a jersey as something that you only wear on certain occasions. You have to have a reason to wear a jersey. You don't just rock a jersey sitting around a house. You don't just rock a jersey going to the grocery store. In my head, a jersey is a nicer clothing item, because this is going back to when I was young and I was in school, and the hip hop artists and everybody that I was looking up to, that's what they were wearing. You wore a jersey, you had a snapback or a fitted hat that matched, that was the same colors, if not the exact same team, and then maybe some jeans. That was just how shit was. So your nice clothes to wear to school were jerseys. I had a shitload of jerseys. So I've got this jersey hanging in my closet, and I've just never seen fit to have an occasion to wear it or even take the tag off. But if you were to give me something related to making videos or podcasts, it would become an integral part of my life almost immediately, because that's part of my daily process. So maybe I just need to get better at telling people what I want. Oh, so the killer was her brother, and it's just, everybody lived, and Dewey and Gail are getting along. Oh, they's gonna get married, going to the chapel, and we're gonna get married. I'm sorry for anybody who's pissed off that this changed from a movie commentary into a quasi-motivational lecture. It's just the direction that I went. It was the thought pattern I was having at the time, and I was able to get a reasonable stream of consciousness going and actually move in some directions and explore some ideas. This movie was just not doing it for me. I wasn't getting a lot of fodder to go into the canon so that I could shoot out ideas at y'all. It just wasn't feeling right for me, so I just started exploring different ideas and thoughts along the way, and we ended up where we ended. You guys are like parents now. That's what you look like. You look like you're a couple getting ready to take your kid to the park. Armored truck. She looked back like something was gonna pull in. No. No. I like that outfit, Nev.
Sid, we've been waiting for you. We're gonna start a movie.
What kind of movie?
You have to come and see.
Oh, is he the love interest now? He did become the love interest. Leave the door open to another sequel. Oh my god, is that really what they were going for there? Like, we were wondering, I wonder if they're gonna leave the door open to another sequel, and then she literally leaves the door open. Based on characters created by Kevin Williamson. He just didn't get to... There was Harvey Weinstein's name. Oh, man. So, there you have it. That is my sort of commentary on Scream 3. Eventually, I'll start working in... I guess I sort of already have. I have a couple of podcasts that are just labeled number 1, number 2, which are not related to movies, where I'm driving around in my car after my paper route. So I definitely will be mixing in stuff that is not just movie commentaries and about movies into the mix when I have something to talk about. And I guess that was a small sample that you got just there. Scream 3, you know, I guess it had to be made, 'cause Scream 2 was very successful, but they lost their way in a major way, and it almost became a self-parody where they realized that it was so bad that they were just going to steer into it and make fun of themselves, but we didn't really get the joke. And it's pretty mediocre. You do have, you know, it has elements that it's shot well, it's edited well, the continuity's there, like I talked about with like the makeup and stuff like that. There's not really a lot of shit that takes you completely out of it. Good actor, or at least good actors, a good cast. I wish Liev Schreiber was in the movie more. I wish Randy wasn't dead in the other one, but those are entirely different issues. So when you're ranking it as an actual rating of a film, I think you really have to take into consideration those type of production elements that I was just mentioning. Because if you were to have a movie with the best story ever, and it was shot like shit, edited like shit, music was shitty, there was continuity issues, any of those, God forbid, multiple at the same time, it would really affect your judgment of the movie, even if the story was fucking perfect. So, if the story's shit, you still have to take those other elements into account when rating the movie. You just have to, because that's what goes into the total product of a complete movie and a great movie. Is all those elements working together, like a successful team, like the football or the New England Patriots. They do well on offense, defense, and special teams. They treat it all important. Everybody does their job. That's their motto: do your job. So if everybody does their job, success. Anyway, I'm starting to get scramble-brained. I appreciate you guys listening, putting up with my ranting. We will be doing Scream 4 next, and I'll watch that a little more intently because I don't know as much about it, so I'm not already scorned. I'm not already going into it prepared to be disappointed and bored like I was with this one. Anyway, Avarice Trading Podcast, Avarice Trading channel on YouTube. Or you can go to my Instagram at Avarice Trading. Make sure you click the follow button while you're there, and in my bio you will find my link tree, which contains links to the eBay store, the Poshmark Closet, the podcast RSS feed, the podcast on SoundCloud, so you can just directly play it there, and the link to the YouTube channel. It's all on there. So you can take the RSS feed, you can plug it into whatever, Zune, iTunes. I'm in the iTunes store. Any of that shit, you should be able to find it. Like, comment. Please comment. Tell me what's up. Tell me what you want me to do after I'm done with Scream. Give me some feedback. Should I throw a couple episodes of The Wire out there and see if anybody digs it? Is there a need for that or an audience for that? What do you guys want me to do? What do you think would lend itself well to my personality? Please, let me know. Let me know. Let him know, ladies and gentlemen. Let him know. So, like, comment, share with your friends. Maybe just as important as liking, commenting, subscribing. Share it with your friends. Post this shit up on your social media and see what happens. Text it to your buddy who likes movies. Text it to somebody you watched movies with in the 90s. You guys can reminisce about being in love with a stripper. Anyway, until the next time, this is Devin signing off and saying, be easy.